Welcome, everyone, to my fifth podcast. I am very excited to speak with Levi Polichenko. And as usual, subscribe, like, comment, and share to help the algorithm bring it to more people, which helps bring Moshiach. So, Reb Levi, tell me about a little bit your life. I know you're on Shlichus and you have your own podcast. We can talk about that. But where did that start from?
So my life started. My father is a shliach, or was a shliach in Tijuana, Mexico, and that's where my life started. Um, my father came down on Shlichus in Tufshin Nun Gimel, I think, and he was there before he got married. And he got married. And he had his Sheva Brachas in Shul, very nice. But growing up on Shlichus, obviously people have different experiences, but for me, it gave me a desire to also continue on the tradition, so to speak, and go out on Shlichus myself. So I was in Mexico until I was 13 or 14, and then we moved to San Diego. In San Diego, my father continued Shlichus, but in a different community, because a lot of the people that lived in Tijuana either moved to San Diego or moved to Eretz Yisrael or different parts of the world, because Tijuana is a border city, and if some people might know about it, it's not the safest place in the world. There's a lot of drugs and cartels and all that stuff, but so a lot of people didn't want to grow up, have their kids grow up in such an area. So in the beginning, in the earlier years of my father being there was a very big Jewish community. And as the years progressed, as society started progressing and becoming either better in certain parts of the world, or in certain parts of the world got worse because of the advent of technology and all that stuff. So people started moving to places where they felt their children would have a better future. So gradually, as the years progressed, more and more people started moving out. And at a certain point, my father felt that his shlichus moved on to a different place. So Bashkacha Pratis, an opportunity came up in San Diego. I'm not going to get into the story behind that, but an opportunity arose, and it happened to be Punkt, an area, very big area, where a lot of his old community members moved to. So he felt that would be a good place to move to to follow his old community. And yeah, that's where I was for my Bacher years. That's where I was based out of. I was in yeshiva in LA, in Yoek, first 3 years in Mesivta, and then in Zal I was there for 2 years. Then I went to Crown Heights, and yeah, throughout the entire thing, going. My father was always moving back and forth from Mexico to San Diego, but that's where my life started and continued in San Diego, in America.
Do you remember your life in Mexico?
I do. My first funny enough, my first language was Spanish, not English. I did not grow up speaking English. I grew up speaking Spanish, and my father spoke to us in Hebrew. My mother spoke to us in Yiddish, and we learned Spanish speaking in the community.
Right.
And then when we moved, so here's the little interesting part of the story. We lived in Mexico, in Tijuana, for I think until I was 4 or 5. Don't remember exactly. But at a certain point, we moved to San Diego, but we still were Shluchim in Mexico. So my father every morning would drive to Mexico. And the reason why that happened, the reason why they made that move, was because of school. My father had a school for a few years. For the beginning of his Shlichus, he had a school. And my kindergarten years were preschool years were in Mexico. My older brother was kindergarten in Mexico. And then because people started moving out, so there were not that many young kids. So my father closed the school, and we started going to school in San Diego. Now, instead of waking up every morning at 5 a.m. to be able to cross the border and go to school in San Diego, we decided to move. The entire family would be in San Diego, and my father would go every day, and every Shabbos we would move to Mexico for Shabbos. So when we started going to school in San Diego, my parents started speaking to me in English so that we would be able to learn English, and we wouldn't have such a hard time with such a language barrier. And yeah, that's my English now.
It works. Your English is very good. I can't
Thank
tell
you.
that it wasn't your first language.
Yeah,
And also,
yeah.
you don't even, I don't know, to me, you don't have an accent.
I don't. In the beginning, I did. I remember there's a few things that I had an accent to, and I worked on not having that accent anymore. And Baruch Hashem, here I am.
Mhm.
So Mexico was actually personally, my favorite years were in Mexico. I mean, to be honest, those are the years that my formative years, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. My bar mitzvah was in Mexico. So those were the years that I was, becoming who I am today, in a more, more humanistic type way. The person that I am today, Beruchnius, is more my Bacher years in LA, but my character and a lot of the attributes that I have are because of those years in living in Tijuana, in speaking to different people, going out of my comfort zone and talking to strangers and with Tzayim and all these things. It gives you a certain characteristics, certain traits that I think otherwise I probably wouldn't have gotten. Baruch Hashem,
Mhm.
the Abisher puts us in places to get, to make us who we are. That's
Right. I believe, like, we're all Jewish, yes, but each person is very unique. And sometimes it's easier to find the uniqueness in some people over others. And I mean, I already see a uniqueness with you. I mean, there's for sure maybe a few people that are kind of similar to your situation where your parents went to Shlichus. You were in a certain place up to 13, and then you moved to a community. Truth is, even San Diego is, I don't know, not. I mean, it's a better Jewish community, bigger, more religious. But then you also were able to go to yeshiva. Like the combination of that, and also you didn't even get to where you are now, which we will probably get to. Also, that combo is a very unique combo. Which, like you said, you got something in Shlichus that you otherwise wouldn't get, which I totally agree. And maybe we could talk more about that, why that is. Also, yeah. What do you say about that?
I
And
I think,
everything. If you think.
yeah, everything. And the whole um so there's definitely an aspect to it that there's some people that their entire life they're growing up in a rural area where there's seldom do they see other from kids. They're on online school and castrus and all this stuff are very hard. They push it. The interaction with other from life is not very much there. So I had a nice combination, a nice healthy, I think, combination where,
Yeah.
yeah, I on one hand I did grow up in not having, my Yiddishkeit, my Lubavitch and all that stuff. Like I was the Lubavitcher, I was the from person in Mexico. That gives you a certain amount of pride in your Yiddishkeit, in your Chassidishkeit. And on the other hand, I did have interactions. The school that I went to in San Diego, although it wasn't all from kids, it was a mixed school, Chabad Hebrew Academy. But I still, again, that also gave me a nice balance of, I'm interacting with other from kids. There are other shluchim, other shluchim had their kids in the school. But on the other hand, the other aspect is that we were in class with non-from kids, and so therefore, again, I was the shliach of the class, for inviting for people for Shabbos, to experience what Shabbos is like in a from household, and I had the what's it called, the incentive for people to come to my house because my Shabbos was in Mexico, so it was a cool zach to come to my house for Shabbos because we used to move to Mexico, Pashit, for Shabbos. And yeah, I think so. The whole the effect that Shlichus has, I think, and this gives me a healthy, at least in my opinion, healthy Yiddishkeit and healthy Chassidishkeit is that, you know, there's a mission. There's a reason why you are from. There's a reason why you're Chassidish. There's a reason why you're Lubavitch. The reason is because there are people that don't know anything about Judaism, don't know anything about Eibishter, don't know anything about Chassidishkeit, and your job is to give that over. And the way to best give it over, I think, is by example. You know, if you lead by example, if you're a person that leads a nice life, and on top of that, you are from and you're Chassidish and you're Lubavitch, so then a person will see that and say, it's not hard. You're not living a hard life by being from. You know, a person that lives in Mexico, to be religious, it's like, where you're going to get kosher food, where are you going to send your kids to school, where, you know, you're going to go to Shul Shabbos, where you're going to live, you're going to walk, you're going to keep Shabbos. All these little details becomes, it's like, I'm not going to do it because it's way too overwhelming. But when you have a rabbi, and you have a shliach and his kids are from, and you see what he's doing, so you want to try to emulate. You see how it works. You see how it's possible. And not only that, but you have help. You know, we have help in the sense of the Rebbe has, we're on the Rebbe's places, we're on the Rebbe's shoulders. And by the Rebbe sending, the Rebbe sending us on Shlichus is to help those people be comfortable and be okay with becoming from and becoming Lubavitch and becoming Yidden and becoming real believers in Hashem. So when that is your mission, when your job is to influence others, it gives you a certain amount of koyach, a certain amount of strength. Because if you're living for yourself, you're not living to impress other people, you're not living to help other people, then what's stopping you from one morning just being like, not today, no, not today. I'm rolling over. I'm going back to sleep. You know, today, you know, I'm not going to daven that long. I won't say all the words. I'm not feeling it today. If you're living for yourself, you don't become a healthy person, right? There's, you know, being in yeshiva in Los Angeles, you know, the Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Ezra Shochet. You know, yesterday we did the Siyam Rambam, and something that stuck with me and gave me an impact with Rabbi Ezra as the Rosh was that when the Rebbe came out with this new mitzvah of learning Rambam, it was hard for him, right? Because, you know, he's a person that learns. He's a learner, right? He learns Torah. It's not like it's hard for him to learn. It's very easy. It's not easy for him to learn, but it's something that he enjoys. He enjoys learning. The problem over here was that Rambam is something that's like, you're not learning it to really gain chachma. Rambam is in a way dry. Why? Because it's halacha. Rambam is going through clear halacha. Gemara is geschmack. There's shakavataria. You have to really use your head. Rashi, Tosfos, Mefarshim, Mahina. Rambam is very simple. You know, there's the black and white what the Rambam says, and that's really it. And that's what the Rebbe expected. The Rebbe expected everybody was to learn Rambam, look in the book, read the words, translate the words, and understand and just understand plain what the Rambam says. So the Rosh had a very hard time. So what did he do? He decided to give a shiur. The best way for him to learn Rambam is to give a shiur. If he gave a shiur on it, he would have to learn it, and that's the way he did it. And I have a cousin who was zeicha to be one of the first people in the shiur, and he was talking about it. But every night, I think after Seder, the Rosh would sit down. Everybody would sit around his table. And he has a very big table. And he would give a shiur on Rambam, Shleisha Parakim Rambam. Now,
wow,
if you can imagine,
I can't imagine how long that took.
Correct. It takes us some time to do it ourselves, and here he is giving a shiur on it, which means you have to say the words and then you have to explain it. You know,
Yeah.
he was saying how people would fall asleep. It would be hours. And he said right. One time he was sitting right in front, like on the like by the table, different rows. Not everybody was around the table, but he was sitting right by the table, and he fell asleep. And he fell asleep, with the head down, leaning on the table. And the Rosh realized that he was sleeping, so he stood up. The Rosh stands up, picks up his side of the table, which means the side that my cousin was on. The table went down, so he was like in midair. And as like he was falling, the Rosh slammed his side of the table back down. So again, my cousin's side of the table went flying up and hit him in the face.
Oh
And
no.
whatever, Baruch Hashem, the Rosh always means well, Baruch Hashem. But that Nakuda of, if he
Yes.
was doing it for himself, he wouldn't have done it. He would have said, okay, I was yoy designed just by reading the words, or I did one parak should be enough, or I started, I fell asleep in middle. Yeah, okay, whatever. You give yourself so many excuses to either not do it or not finish, or not do it in the best way. But when you're doing it for someone else, when you're doing it for other people, you have to do it in the best way because other people are relying on you. So I think this is my Yiddishkeit and my Chassidishkeit is that it has to be in a way that is good. It has to be in a way that other people will see it and say, I want to do this. And you can't. Now, obviously, there's a hard part in the sense of you have to always be on. You have to always be, doing stuff for other people. But it gives you the most. It's purpose. It makes your life meaningful because you are living your life as emulation, as for someone else to learn and to be inspired and to get involved. And that's why I think Shlichus is it for it should be for everybody across the board, but everybody has their own experiences. But that's what Shlichus, that was one of the beauties of Shlichus that the Rebbe said, is that, it'll give the child, if the child is also on Shlichus, if the child knows that he's also on Shlichus, it gives him a certain amount of I'm the Rebbe Shliach, and therefore, pasnish for me to watch a movie. Pasnish for me to go out on a Mitzvah Shabbos with my non-from friends to a bar. Pasnish for me, because I'm the Yid, I'm the from guy, I'm the Chassidish guy, I'm the Lubavitcher. For them to know that a Lubavitcher doesn't do that. A Shliach of the Rebbe doesn't do that. And so therefore it gives you a certain amount of strength to do the right thing. Anyways,
so it's a good pressure. It's a good pressure, you're saying. That sounds all good, and I mean, in practical facts, there are probably majority, I believe, that are outcome of what you're saying. But I think it's also a fact that unfortunately there are here and there Shluchim's kids that are struggling, to say the least. How do you explain that? Why is that, in other words?
So there's a few things. I'll just touch on one of them. Is that
it's a sensitive thing, so maybe you want to be careful what you say. I don't know,
correct,
not to be censored. Not to be censored. We want to again. I didn't say this. This point is not to bash anyone or shluchim anything. This is to bring awareness, make the world a better place. Okay, go ahead.
There you go. On that note, no, I think there is, and this is across the board. It's not just to do with Shluchim's kids. It's not just to do with growing up on Shlichus. I think you see it everywhere, and I think there's a common denominator of anybody that finds a struggle in any specific thing and has a hard time with staying on the Chassidus, Chabad, Lubavitch, Yiddish, from all these things track. What I think the common denominator is that you struggle with yourself. You struggle with the purpose. You struggle with finding the purpose. Now, a person that grows up on Shlichus, you would think, I just explained the whole thing. Growing up on Shlichus, your whole life is purpose. That's the purpose. The reason why you're in Mexico is to help inspire other people to become from. But even then, it's very, the mind plays very good tricks. And even when that when you know the purpose, when you know why you need to do something, your mind plays a trick, right? We just came from Purim, Shabbos Parsha Zachar. We have to remember to get rid of Amalek, right? So there's two types of Amalek. There's the physical Amalek, which is Asher Karcha B'Derech, that came and on the time when the Yidden were the most high of the high, came and said, nope, don't worry, that we can mess with them. Basically told the Goyim Hatzach and the Ram, don't worry, the Yidden are not the big, it's all a show, it's all big, they're all big talkers. But here we are, Asher Karcha B'Derech. We're gonna attack them and see how it goes. But then you have the Amalek, and every one of us have an Amalek inside of us, which is even when you see the truth, even when there's something, right? Someone says a very compelling argument. Something says something that is logical. But we have an Amalek inside of us that says, Amalek doesn't give you anything. Amalek doesn't argue with the logic. What Amalek does is just cools it down
Apathy.
and says, correct. Not only apathy. It's even when we're just doing seichel, we're just using our intellect, we're just using our brain. Something that is logical, 100% logical. There's no argument. There's no holes in my logic. But what Amalek would do is, okay, fine. He said a good argument. Fine. But that's exactly what Amalek does. Amalek is just karcha. Just cool down. Don't get all excited about the fact. Don't get all excited about the MS. Don't get all excited about it. Don't get excited. And what happens when you're not excited? Correct, apathy. What happens when you're not excited is it's very easy to just turn away. Even though you know that it's true. Even though you know that this is the best thing for you. Even though you know, right? You'll learn your entire life that this is the truth. Nevertheless, you have that Amalek inside of us to turn you away. So I think where does
that itself come from? Where did that itself come from?
So everybody has different things. So if you listen to the psychologists and all these things, there's different experiences that a person goes through. That if you're a person that is a little weak in the sense of defenses are down and all these things, then one experience, a small experience, whether it's someone looked at you weirdly, or your father said this, or you felt a certain way when you did something, or you did something for someone else and they responded in a way that you expected a better response, but they didn't do such a response. Any little thing could be that switch of like, okay, now Asher Karcha, that tiny thing could be what cools you down. It doesn't have to be like I was just listening to Shimon Russell, the famous
with YY Jacobson.
No. He came. Oh. No. He came to speak. He came to speak for the mechanchim. I'm a teacher, so.
Oh my God! Highly suggested. One of the best mechanchim in the world. Yeah.
100%.
No, yeah. You go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. He said that he said basically that education has to be. He said the development of a child is that 0 to 2, you give them a lot of love. You just love them. Anything that they do, it doesn't matter. I love you, which means that I don't react to anything. You flip the table. I don't react in any harsh way. I just give you a hug. I laugh. I give you a hug. So that the kid should have a baseline of, I know my father loves me. Whatever I do, he loves me. And then at a certain point, so there's an argument of if it's 0 to 2 or if it's 0 to 18 months. There's a whole machlekes of what the age is exactly. But everybody agrees that definitely the first year of a child's life, anything that they do, you cannot get angry at them. You cannot show any negative reaction towards anything that they do. Rather, it has to be a positive reaction. It has to be a reaction that they'll feel loved, even if whatever they did. Then comes the next part of development. The next stage is, I think, according to Shimon Russell, he said 2 to I think 16 or something, where that's when you have to discipline. Now, discipline can be in different ways. There's all arguments about what discipline means, all these things, but that's not where I'm getting. We're not getting into that now. But now that you established a baseline of I love you, anything that you do, now we can have discipline. Now I can say, okay, no, this you crossed the line. You can't do this, right? If you flip the plate and you made a mess all over the floor, you have to clean it up. The child knows that I love him. My child knows that as a father, I love you, but there are certain things that you can't do, right? We're training you. We're developing you to be able to live in life, and in life, these things that you can't do. But when you have the baseline of I love you, then they'll be able to accept it. I can accept the fact that my father is telling me that I can't do this because I know that at the end of the day, my father loves me. He says that if you don't have the baseline of love, it's very tricky. The whole discipline thing, it's a battle. It's a constant battle. Why? Because your child is always testing you and seeing, does he really love me? Does he love back and forth. He says that there are two things that cause a child to go off the derech. He said one, big thing, sexual abuse, or educate or learning, learning hard difficulty, right? If a child has a difficulty learning, and the teachers should make him feel like an idiot, or it's too fast and he just shuts off and that's it, and that turns them away. I personally think that it's not just these two massive things. Rather, it could be if a person, and usually these things happen, as a teenager, is that if you are not strong in yourself, if you're not strong in your identity, then any little thing will give you an excuse to turn away. So going back to Shlichus, you have to have a very, very strong baseline of purpose. Now, your average person, I believe your average person has, as time progresses, has a strong baseline of thing, and even a little thing won't turn them away. Right? And that's why you see your average Yid, your average Lubavitcher doesn't fry out. Now, nowadays we're getting into an issue, and that's why you have YY talking about it, and talking to Shimon Russell, and you have Shay's Taub talking about it. So many people talking about it, because what's happening is now there's the baseline of being strong in your own identity is falling away because of technology, because of the social media, not technology. Social media is the issue, because social media opens you up to so many different people that an average person shouldn't really be engaging with thousands and thousands of people. It's crazy for an average person to engage every single day with thousands of people. Okay,
it's so funny is you're saying that, because I never thought of it that way. Yeah,
and what happens is you open yourself up to so much to so much criticism that we're not supposed to get. Naturally, we don't get so much criticism. The only criticism that we usually get, or the healthy criticism, is from our father and from our teacher and from our friends. But our friend group is like 5 people, right? If you're a really popular guy, but even then, your real friends are like 3-4 people. So to get credit, right? Let's say you're a social media influencer, and you're famous. You have thousands of followers. It's not healthy to get so much criticism. Even 100 people criticizing you is not healthy. So what's happening is our self-esteem is being shot every single moment. Every day we're going on our phone, and our self-esteem is being shot. So obviously it's becoming more and more what's the word? A lot of people are getting more and more vulnerable, and more is it easier for them to be cooled off, and just be apathetic about the whole thing, and say, you know what, even though I know that this is my purpose, even though I know that this and that, but it's also it's not for me. Another thing, yeah.
1 second. So I want to repeat back to you if I understand you correctly. It sounded like you're saying more that just a bunch of like hits, like a bunch of people hitting you, and then eventually it just crumbles. But before, it sounded like you were saying that not so much the hitting, it's just what word did you use? That they don't have a strong baseline, and that's why they're crumbling. But if you have a strong baseline, it doesn't matter how many hits you have. No?
Right. So right. The more and more are younger people, right? 8th graders, 7th graders, 6th graders, 5th graders, even 4th graders. I just heard that even 3rd graders are being exposed to social media, so that they're never getting a strong baseline.
1 second, you just said the baseline is 2 years old.
Okay, right. So what's
Yeah.
happening? So what's happening is parents have there's been a big shift in parenting. Now, whatever. We're getting into into
No,
the
fine. No, adrabah, no. Yeah,
right.
it's good. It's
Okay.
very good.
All right. I'll go for it. All right. Parenting. It's becoming very much just the baseline of love is being moved. The bar is being moved further and further, which means that it's no longer 0 to 2. It's now 0 to 16. I love my kid. My kid can do no wrong. I love my kid. Now the problem is that when you start when you love when you only show love, when you only show compassion, when you only show warmth and you know that you could do no wrong to a 3-year-old, what's happening is when something hits him, it's the end of the world. Any tiny thing when if you know, let's say chas v'shalom, a 4-year-old does something really really bad. You know, let's say a 4-year-old is growing up in a home where it's love and beautiful warmth and he could do no wrong. He's flipping tables, he's flipping chairs. My child, the best child. And then he's playing in the yard, and a kid pushes him over. Whether it's on purpose, by accident, doesn't matter. A kid pushed him over. The 4-year-old, all of a sudden, his world has crumbled. Someone just did something bad to me. Now, because yes, he has a baseline of love, but the problem is that the love just kept on going and going and going, and he never got a sense of like, okay, my father loves me, my mother loves me, but at the same time, there's certain things that I could do, certain things that I can't do, and he starts being exposed to not to some gvura, right? We'll go to the chesed and gvura thing. If there's only chesed, then as soon as he feels an iota of gvura, his whole life crumbles. But if you're exposed to healthy gvura, and how is healthy gvura? Where do you get healthy gvura from? From your parent. Your parent gives you healthy gvura. For the most part, you know, there are parents that don't give healthy gvura, but the most part is you should get healthy gvura from your parents. When you're exposed to healthy gvura, then you can go into the world and correct, and nothing can stop you. The strong
So
baseline is
mhm.
the strong baseline. Let me
Can
just
I
finish.
repeat it back to you? I know if
Yeah.
you like fully finished, but I just want to lose my train of like. I want to see if I understand you. So you're saying, it, like practically, this looks like when a father, mother teaches discipline to the child. So then, when something like the child gets pushed over in the playground, he's going to take it like what happens? So let's say
So
the positive case. What would it look like then?
the what's the positive case?
Positive meaning the parents did teach him discipline, and now he gets
So
pushed. What happened? What does it look like?
so what happens is he starts crying, right? He goes over to his father and he says, that guy pushed me. So now a healthy father, a healthy parent would say, would walk the child over to the person that pushed him and say, you know, have a conversation. Excuse me, you pushed my son. The kid would say, I'm sorry, it was an accident. So you would turn over to the thing and say, I understand it was an accident, but apologize. When the kid would apologize and move on. Purpose, same thing, apologize, whatever, you talk to the parent, whatever it is. But what your child has just experienced is the fact that there is a possibility to have gvura with healthy gvura. That is healthy gvura. Now, let's say a parent that just loves their kid and they can do no wrong and this and the other. What's going to happen is the parent would run over to the child that pushed this kid and be like, and talk to the parent and then make a whole big thing. The child, now what he just learned is that no one could push me. No one could do anything to me. If anybody pushes me, if anybody hurts me, no, you can't. I am the most important person in the world. And therefore what happens is it festers into an egotistical child, because now that
Right. So
child
how
will
does
go
that
through
play
life.
out as a teenager? How does that play out as a teenager or whatever that fries out? How does that? How does it look like then? Older, when he gets older.
which the one that
And
only
both
gets
the
chesed.
positive or the negative. If the yeah.
So what's going to happen is like this. What's going to happen is a child, the child that has a healthy home, healthy parents, giving him healthy gvura, showing him healthy gvura, that when you do certain things, it's just not okay. All these things, obviously, with the baseline of Ava. What's going to happen is as he grows older, if someone does something to him, he's going to know how to do it. He's going to know how to handle himself. And what's going to happen is if his friend pushes him, or not his friend pushes him, and whether it's a mistake or on purpose, he's going to walk. He's going to be the mature one. He's going to be mature and walk over to the other person that pushed him and say, "Excuse me, you pushed me. I don't appreciate when I'm pushed. I hurt myself. This and that, whatever it is." Obviously, the language that I'm using is overly mature and overly intellect, but it's going to be obviously watered down to an emotional reaction, but that emotional reaction is going to be with a certain sense of maturity, that I can take care of this myself. I'm a big boy. Now, a person...
What about spiritually? I'm talking more spiritually.
So spiritually is like this. Spiritually is that when a child has a healthy gvura, if something bad happens to him with the Eibishter, right? He's not going to get upset at the Eibishter. Why? Because if the Eibishter is kol kolei chesed, right? Let's go back to this to the child in his earlier years. He was pushed, and the father goes over to the child and says, "Excuse me, you pushed my child. Why did you push him?" And the child says, "Because there was a fly or something. There was a bee, and I pushed him over because I didn't want him to get hurt." Okay, fine, but I mean, we're getting too into the weeds of the examples, but the point is that when you realize that there are some things that could seem to be bad, could seem to be like everybody's trying to get out to get me. If I have a healthy childhood, then I know that not everybody's out to get me. Not everybody's trying to hurt me. Sometimes it could be an accident, or in Yiddishkeit, everything the Eibusher does is good, and therefore, even if it's something that I perceive as bad, I perceive as a hardship, right? For example, chas v'shalom, if you get sick and you're stuck at home and you miss the grand trip in camp, but it's going to give you a certain sense of like, fine, it's going to be hard. No, I'm not saying it's not going to be hard, but the process that you go through is going to lead you to understand, to being okay with it, because Eibusher is good. And therefore, if you give something to someone and you expect an amazing response, but you get a reaction that is like lackluster or like cold, you're not going to take it to heart. You're not going to take it personally, because fine, okay, not everybody. It could be he is having a bad day. It leads you to think in certain ways where you're not the victim, as opposed to if you have if you didn't go through such a good childhood, if you had a more chesed, more ahava in the times where you should have had gvura. So then those times where you encounter gvura, you're not going to be able to react to it properly. And what happens when you don't react to it properly is very easy to just lock the door. I'm staying in my room. Don't talk to me. I'm gonna do my own thing. Gesundheit, whether it's the truth or not, it doesn't matter, because I am hurt, I am pained, and everybody's bad. Eibishter is not doing nice things to me, chas v'shalom. And if someone looks at you wrong, if someone looks at you in the wrong way, it doesn't matter what the guy's thinking. It doesn't matter. The guy could be going through the worst things in his life. You all of a sudden, you make yourself a victim. You think about yourself always. You become a victim to everything that happens in your life.
Interesting. Especially because I've always seemed to look at it the opposite, that the reason why people go off the derech is because of too much gvura, not too much chesed. I think there definitely are people who are not religious because of too much chesed issue, but with my encounter and looking at what I see around me is a lot of is too much gvura. There's not accepting from the children are not accepted from their parents, from their schools. They don't feel loved and accepted, and they look for love and acceptance validation from social media. So almost the opposite. What do you think about that?
So interesting, because what has happened is that gvura has become bad. All gvura, which means if you try to discipline your child, the child knows that this is not a good thing. The child knows, right? The worst thing that can happen for a parent is a child saying, if you hit me, I'm going to call the police. How in the world did we get to such a place where a child will call the police on his parent because he's hitting him? Oh, what happened was that being that they've only encountered chesed, they've only encountered ava. Ava is the only thing that they have. So any little thing of gvura will throw them off, will just imbalance. Now, let me give you an interesting statistic. Where do you think we are better now than we were now, where we are love and chesed, and we're teaching social emotional learning in schools, and where school is more about making kids happy than actually getting them to learn? Schools are not hitting anybody. They're not punishing. There's, this and that and the other. Are we better off now? Are our children healthier now? Do we have more? Do we have less off the derech people now, or than we had 50 years ago, 80 years ago, when there was so much more gvura? There was literally hitting children. It's when you really think about it, you see
you've opened up like one of the biggest cans of worms. Wow, I have so much to say on what you just said. I don't even know think about where to start.
Go for it.
So I think the best place to start, and it's not like a debate. I don't want to see this as a debate. I'm starting to feel like we and it's adrab. It's be very interesting when we have two sides. We both see two different sides, and try to be as objective as possible. But I think you need to start. The most important thing is start off with definitions of things. So at least we have to define what's defined as religious. How do you define healthy? How do you define what's the proper way? How do we know? And I made a video about this. Like, how do we know what the Jewish people state is supposed to be, in a sense of, in Gullus at least? Like, because it sounds like what you're saying is like we're supposed to I'm assuming, but it sounds like what you're saying is that the goal is that we are almost like perfect and we're doing all the mitzvahs. But who says that that's what Hashem wants in Gullus? Maybe Hashem wants, and what I've been hearing also sounds like from Shimon Russell, if I could say, and I agree, and it is controversial and it's not traditional at all, is that I believe we are doing better. Now, hold on. I think actually we're in a state right now where we went to the other extreme, and the Rambam himself says we need to do this. And whenever you're on one extreme, you have to go to the other extreme. So we were in an extreme till our generation meaning post the Holocaust, of a kvura. Now, the natural reaction is that when you're one extreme, you go to the other extreme. And you know what? Who says maybe I agree with you. We're not in better because the other extreme is not good either. But I think we're already tilting actually towards the middle ground, which I always try finding a middle ground. And but that being said, that not necessarily are we better, but we're not worse. We're just to the other extreme. But maybe we are better now because I think we're finding a middle ground. We're seeing, like you said, we're seeing the chesrenis of only chesed, of only ava. But I would, on top of that, they're both important, but I believe what people are forgetting, and this is what I'm very passionate about to bring awareness, is that I think we're again, defining what Hashem wants, defining what's considered a good Jew. Is a good Jew someone who's perfect? Is a good Jew someone who who said that's a good Jew? Maybe a good Jew is someone who does his best, and what his best doesn't look like a perfect Jew. His best doesn't mean with the meaning every day. His best doesn't mean doing whatever his struggles is. That's not what he's supposed to do. What he's supposed to do is be authentic, and that's something revolutionary that hasn't been spoken about. And I mean, there's many areas where I can go into this. Like they say, like I heard this, I think it was from Shimon Russell again. They said like we're coming to a time in Moshiach where we need to be fully authentic, have a real relationship. The only way to have a real relationship is that we need the safety and the acceptance, which now we have. Maybe we have it too much. Now we're trying to find a balance, but we definitely need that safety and acceptance, which we never had till now because of too much gvura. Does that make sense? I don't even know if I want to say everything, but that's pretty much the gist of it.
Right. So yes, we have gone too far to the other side, to the other extreme. And the question is like this. The question is, which extreme
is better?
No.
That's actually my argument. I actually think definitely nowadays, I think the fact that we are extremely chesed is the right thing. We should not be it's better now that we're extremely chesed. And yet, although it's not good, but if you want to say what's better, I think extremely chesed is better.
I'll tell you the issue with nowadays is that we're way too much focused on ourselves. And that's why you have what? Why is that bad?
Yeah. Define that, because that's part of the thing.
Oh, beautiful that you ask. Social emotional learning, right? In schools they teach. They're teaching now. I don't know how long ago they started, but social emotional learning basically is the philosophy or the derech of teaching that we're teaching about emotions. That you have emotions. You're a person that has emotions, and we have to navigate the world based on our emotions. So, if you feel angry, so there's the Jewish approach that, they tried tweaking it to be more Yiddish, more Jewish, the Project Tamim Menachem Education Foundation has a nice project that they're trying to bring into classrooms, that everybody has emotions, right? Children have emotions and self-regulations. Children don't have a good way of self-regulating themselves, so they need adults, they need parents, they need all these things to help themselves regulate, right? That's understood from all parents, whatever it's called. But what the issue with social emotional learning is that the point in the middle around the circle where you draw is yourself. You draw you put up yourself, and then everything is surrounding yourself. Now, what's the issue with that? The issue with that is that it's a little bit opposite of Torah. Why? Because Torah's approach is what does that mean? That means if you wake up in the morning and you don't feel like doing something, so according to social emotional learning, is take a break, take time for yourself, figure yourself out, right? You have an issue right now, you're going through something hard, take a break, take a moment. You don't need to do whatever you needed to do. You don't need to do right now. It's not true that you need to do it. And what's happening is we are changing the way society works, the way the world works, the way life works. We're changing that in order to cater to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Which means
I agree.
that so what's happening is, and we'll do this in the Jewish lens, is if I wake up in the morning and I don't want to go to shul and I don't want to go to work and I don't all these things, so according to nowadays understanding, you don't have to. Why? Because if Yiddishkeit is about making it yourself, making it personal, making it the best way that you can do it, so then take it to its logical conclusion. If I don't want to do it now, if I don't feel like being a Yid right now, then if that's what Yiddishkeit is about, if Yiddishkeit is about making yourself, if that's the main point, if that's the foundation of everything, then again, what's stopping me from one day not doing it? But if the foundation of Yiddishkeit is not about you, rather it's about the Eibishter, rather it's about something outside of you, you have responsibility outside of yourself. You have basically everything is about outside of yourself, the way you interact with the world, and this goes back to Shlichus. if your entire thing is about outside of you, about someone else, then it gives you a healthier baseline. The foundation is do it. Just do it. Wake up in the morning. If you don't feel like it, do it anyways. And going to the depression and all these different things, all these emotional health. If you are doing right, we talk a lot about it. It's because it's talked about a lot. Depression. What's the solution to depression? And Rebbe talks about it.
Hold on. Okay, I don't want you to forget about it, but can I actually? I want to first actually see if I understood you, and then have a response. Can I do that? And we'll get hopefully remember to go back to depression, because I don't want to, because now you're already starting another thing. You're saying what? You're saying, if I understand it correctly, that the problem is that it's all about me. It's all about me. It's self-centered, and the foundation should be it's about the other person. It's about Hashem. In short, yeah, is that what you're saying? Yeah. So I believe I made a video on this that kind of, it's not a contradiction, and I basically the short answer is there's the long way and there's the short way, meaning that yes, the foundation is about Hashem, but that in itself, to work on myself, is also about Hashem. So it's kind of a combination of both. Hashem himself wants that I should work on myself meaning my emotions. Part of my relationship is not just doing it. Part of my relationship is also I have feelings towards it. And to balance both, because you don't want to have someone who just does whatever he wants, is that if because you're not functional as a human being if you're doing your whole life just doing it. That's what I think. You've turned into a robot, a zombie. Either you lose your energy, or I don't know, you're not a healthy human being. So in the long term, you must feel like doing it. It's not even shy of possible, not now, but in the short term, which is definitely possible, to definitely have some days you'll wake up and not feel like going to Shlichus, whatever the example. So that's when you say Nas Maiso Eager, just do it anyways. That is the healthy way to combine both. Is that what do you say about that?
100%. I again, if the foundation is that Hamaito Eker, correct, then any the point. Okay, the point. The best way to be mechanech, the best way to educate someone, is if you take away all the complications, all the details, all the this and on the other. What are you left with? What is it? What's the recipe that is going to give you the most success? The most success comes when the foundation, when you strip away everything, when you are in the worst situation possible. How are you going to get yourself out of the situation? Are you going to get out of the situation by focusing on yourself? Or are you going to get out of the situation by focusing on outside of yourself? Meaning, is it going to be all about how I feel? Or is it going to be about what I have to do? Now, I am not at all saying that you shouldn't make it yourself. I'm not at all saying that you shouldn't identify with what you're doing. Adraba, right? Maisehu Iker is not like, oh, don't think about anything, just be a robot and do mitzvahs. No. The reason why you have to learn Torah, which it goes along with that, is to know what you have to do. And you have to learn Torah. You have to learn Chassidus. And Chassidus gives you, and by the way, that was the big chiddush of Chassidus, is that people for so long were being robots, and it wasn't working anymore. We needed something else, right? The world needed Chassidus. Why did the world need Chassidus? Because the world was becoming too dry, so we needed to moisten up a little bit. But the foundation, but we never, and this was the time of the Misnagdim, was that you're spending so much time on Chassidus, you're going away from the root, from the main thing, which is to actually do to do mitzvahs. That's what their taina was. That's what their whole big claim was. And Chassidus was like, no. We agree. The baseline has to be learn Torah, do mitzvahs. But the whole avoid of Chassidus, what did Chassidus bring, is building on top of that. On top of that has to be all the kavanos and making it your own. That you are waking up in the morning. Shulchan Aruch is a rule book, correct? Is telling you exactly what to do, when you have to do it. But Ahavas Hashem and Yiras Hashem are also important. You also have to have feelings. Feelings are very important to have. But at the end of the day, Chinuch, when you educate a child, you cannot start the education of a child by telling them that you have to feel. You have to educate a child by doing first. First and foremost, you have to do. Now, 1 second. Let's go back. The baseline, the 0 to 2, is when the child cannot control themselves. There's nothing to the child but their instinct and all that stuff. Which means that in that case, correct, there's no gvura to be done. There's no one to talk to. You can't talk to a 2-year, an 18-month, 18-month you start, or you could start.
Yeah.
A 6-month-old you can't talk to and them understand. You can't expect them to. You can't have a conversation with a month-old, and therefore, when there's no one to talk to, that is when you just give them ahava, just love, pure chesed. Give them everything. Don't give them everything, but anything that they do, it doesn't matter. I love you, because there's nothing there. It's not developed enough. It's not.
This is more of a technical side question. So after 2, you don't show that love at all, and also more importantly, what does a parent do? What does a child do for himself if he didn't get that baseline love?
A good question. So I'll go to the first question first. No, of course you show love. The thing. The only thing is that you also have to add to the mix gvura, right? When you're
how do you? But like practically, how do you do both? Like
how do you do both?
You have to clean up
so as long as the child is not doing anything wrong, love, beautiful love, right? But when a child does something wrong, so now the question is, how do you do it? So when your child does something wrong, it has to come from a place that the child understands you love them. Meaning, if it's going to be a natural emotional reaction, then the child is going to hesitate for a second. Does he really love me? Even though, again, let's go back. Once you have a baseline of love, then really, according to Shimon, and I think really, you can not be as strict as you want, but at certain times you could be as strict as you want, because they know that at the baseline you love them. However, on a regular day-to-day thing, when they're not doing something so extreme as burning the house down or hitting you, if they made a mess, tell them you have to clean it up, because that's the natural consequence of making a mess. Is now that you made a mess, there's a mess on the floor. It's not my responsibility. You made the mess, so you have to fix what you did. And when you do it like that, that's not gvura. It's not necessarily gvura. What that is tiferes. It's a mix of chesed and gvura. That's a perfect mix. And in that case, in that scenario, it's not like I have to show you more. I have to do it with a smile. Yay! You spilled your food. But we also have to clean it up. You could do it like that, but it's the exact same thing to do it as in, you made a mess. Now this is what we have to do. Well, you're talking to a child, so you obviously have to make faces. This is what we do when we make a mess, is we have to clean it up.
Actually, we're very focused on Shimon Russell here. It was very recent that I heard that. But I want to say this, that I highly suggest. It's a 3-hour video, but it's like one of the best, longest 3-hour videos you'll ever watch. Y.Y. Jacobs and Shimon Russell. I'm watching it for the 3rd time. I'm not exact, like 3rd time. I watched it twice, the whole thing, because there's so much gems in it. So he specifically says, and it's not just a child. He said and it's actually the real stories that happened. Says that when a student comes to, he said this example, that when a student comes to school late, he said like, oh, you must have had a hard day and you still came to school. Wow, let me, here's a Danish, help you feel better. And then he said like, even when he needs attention, he's like, don't, and because you said, I'm not sure it sounded like you're saying do it with a smile or don't. He said, Dafka, you should give a smile. Why give the angry face? To give the smile, have the detention. So that's like the combination of chesed and gvura, and you know what? Even be there in detention with him, so he doesn't feel he feels safe. Like you're trying to help it. Like you need the detention, you need the consequence, but he's not alone. He's safe. He's accepted, right? That's like a very good combination. What do you say about that?
So, I think it's taking a little bit over the top, and I think that's correcting that is there to correct what's been lacking, right? You asked me the second question is what do we do about those kids that didn't get the baseline? What do we do? So I think that is when you're dealing with nowadays, sadly, a lot of the children are not necessarily are they lacking that baseline, but it's skewed. It's just the whole time. So you have to be very.
It's not there. What do you? I didn't understand what you said. I didn't understand what you said.
Parents nowadays are doing either they're not understand. They're doing both disciplining and showing love, starting from a very very early age, even before they're 2. So that's already messing it up. Or they're giving them the baseline of love throughout their formative years of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I'm a teacher, so I am a second grade teacher. And when you're giving too much of that, when you're only giving that, when you're not giving any level of discipline, so then yes, when you're in class, you have to treat them in a very very you're dealing with fragile children. Now, okay, 1 second. Even when the kids are getting a healthy amount of love and discipline at the same time, obviously children are fragile, but there's a certain extra fragility, if that's the word, in children that have never experienced discipline, but they barely experience discipline. Right, going to that extreme of just chesed. So in those cases, yes, when the child is having a hard time, that's when you listen to Shimon Russell and you do that thing of, disciplining with a smile, or not disciplining, saying that, I want you. He gave a story. I don't know if he said this mashal, or not mashal, but the story by the 3-hour thing. But he said that there was a Rebbe that was having a hard time with the Chumash class, and there was one kid that just wasn't opening his Chumash, this and that and the other. So Shimon told him to go over there to the child and tell him, I don't want you to open the Chumash today. I want you to, I forgot exactly what was the whole conversation, but in the gist of, I love you and this is what I want you to do. I want you to take time. I want you to take your time. Don't open your Chumash today. And he did a few days. And like in the 3rd or 4th day, the kid opened the Chumash himself. He wanted to learn. The kid wanted to learn. Now, I wouldn't say that is the lechatchila. I think lechatchila.
What's wrong? What's wrong with it being lechatchila?
Because you have to learn. You have to learn. Because
give a logical reason why that can't be lechatchila. It seems to work very well.
Logical reason is because a healthy human being has to know that there are certain things that they have to do. You have to eat. You have to eat. You have to sleep. You have to get dressed in the morning. There's things that a human being, a healthy human being, has to do. Whether you feel like it, whether you don't feel like it. That, again, going back to the foundation has to be something that we have to. Yiddishkeit is something that we have to do. Now, again,
those students that didn't get that proper beginning, whatever, the whole package, that good package at the beginning. So then you take Shimon Russell's way and you give him the smile and everything with all these cool techniques, and which seems basically almost entirely chesed, and it works. Like you gave the example, like you said, don't open your Chumash, and then he wanted to do it on his own, right? It's like reverse psychology, but like,
what's the problem with that?
So what? No, yeah, but like, what was I about to say? So where is the gevura come in for such a student? Like, how does he balance the gvura in his life, like you said. Like, so how is he going to learn how to that some things you just got to do?
If the lechatchila is to do like Shimon said to do with his kid, then the kid is going to go through life. If he doesn't want to do something, I'm still loved. God loves me. Everybody loves me. But if I don't want to do it, I don't have to do it. And chinuch is that chinuch is that when you get to a certain age where you are now chayiv b'mitzvahs, now your obligation is to open that chumash. You have an obligation. God, yes, this is he still loves you, but he needs you to open the chumash. That is something that you have to do when you get to a certain age. Right. If he was never told that, if it was only, oh, I don't want you to open the chumash, I want, and then he opens it himself at a certain point, that you can't do it lechatchila. That has to be if you're dealing with a child that is having a hard time. Yes, you react accordingly, but that has to be an accordingly reaction. It can't be lechatchila.
Yeah.
And so, so with this child, if he never gets to a point where he has to open a chumash because that's what the class is doing now, and that's what we have to do, then again, who's to say this child when he grows up and Mitzvah Hashem has a family and has a beautiful job, who's to say at one morning he's going to wake up and he's going to be like, you know what, that thing is going to be in his mind, and he's going to not want to go to work, and he's going to expect the boss to call him and say, I don't want you to go to work today. And then the next day, I don't want you to go to work today. And then the third day, he'll go to work himself. It's not lechatchila. That's not how life works. You have to. Our job as mechanchim, our job as parents, is to give our children the tools to succeed in life. And a successful, now let's define our terms. A successful life looks like, on the surface level, you should be doing things. On the surface level is a successful person, hopefully, only because this is the goodness in life, is to have a wife and to have children. Obviously there is exceptions to the rule, but the rule is supposed to be the successful life. The way, if we can control everything of life, if we're able to form a perfect human being, successful human being is a person that has a wife, has children. Now we're not going to say however many children, but has children, has a job. He's able to provide for his wife and children, provide for his family, have a roof over his head, and also waking up in the morning and doing all the right things. Nagelwasser, tying your left shoe before your right, going to shul, davening with a minyan, saying brachos, and all the right things. A Shulchan Aruch Yid, that is a successful human being. Now, on top of that, as part of being that successful human being is also loving his wife, loving his children being raised up as a continuation of the success that he is. And he loves God. He loves Yiddishkeit. He has such a passion for Judaism. And obviously we're talking about the successful human being in a successful world, a Moshiach world, going into that. But that is success. And because that is, again, this is my definition of success. If that is what success looks like for me as a mechanech, as a parent, I want to give my children as many tools as possible to be able to do that without me being there. I should not be in the room. I should be able to leave the room, and my son, my daughter, doing all the right things without me being there. I should not have to love him. I should not have to force him. I should not have to discipline. It should all be there for himself. He should want to do it. She should want to do it herself without anybody else there. And that's what it boils down to. It boils down to, if you're in a room by yourself, I was telling my kids this, my students this today. If you're in a room by yourself, we were learning about Yiras Shamayim, that what you do in that room by yourself is a product of your education, is a product of your environment, is a product of everything that your parents, everything that your teachers gave you, everything that your friends gave you, whatever you do in that room at that moment. Is it yours? Are you doing it because God told you? Are you doing it because you feel like it? What are you doing it for? If you're doing it because you feel like it, then if you're in a room by yourself, there's no one around. If you don't feel like it, you're not going to do it. But if you're doing it because it's something outside of you, it's something that must be done. Again, think about it like this. Whatever. I lost my train of thought.
So, what's your point? You're trying to say. You're trying to say. No, I also lost my train of thought.
So I'm trying to say it like this: the baseline has to be outside of us. The baseline, again. So this is going back to the Chesed and Gvura. How should we have our education? Is it we've gone too far with Chesed? The problem is, how far are we going to go back to the other side or to the middle? What does the middle look like? I'm asking
What
you,
does
what
the
does the
middle
middle look
look
like?
like? The middle looks perfect. Tiferes is beautiful.
Obviously, but what I'm saying, practically, what is that?
Practically,
Is the example of the child that doesn't want to learn and going over to him and telling him, I don't want you to open your Chumash right now. Is that what Tiferes looks like? Or the other option?
what's alternative? What's alternative?
No.
Okay, what's the other option?
The alternative is that he was brought up in a healthy home, but right now he's struggling with opening his Chumash, and so therefore, when you go over to this child and you say, Tatala, right now it's time to open our Chumash. I understand.
Wait, that's in
that
a
you
perfect world. No, I thought you're not. I thought what's the alternative in the case where he wasn't brought up in a healthy way?
So
That's I thought you were asking.
Right. Okay.
There is no other option.
There is
there?
another option. There is, yes.
That's what I'm asking. In the case we didn't have a healthy beginning.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in that case, what you do is you pull the child to the side and you say, I understand that you don't necessarily want to open the Chumash right now. And I personally, being that I love you so much, I'm okay with you not opening your Chumash, but this is what the class is doing. Right now, the class, we're in a classroom, we're all together, we're one unit, we're a family. And being that this is what we're doing right now, everybody's doing it. So I need also from you to open your Chumash. So now that we got him, now that we got him to a step of doing something that he didn't want to do, because this is what everybody has to do. I'm not telling him that he has to learn. I'm not telling him that he has to participate. I'm just telling him, baseline, open your Chumash. Then now we're exposing him little by little. Obviously, with because he's not healthy, we're giving him with the Chesed, but there has to be, you have to throw in the Gvura. As a teacher, if the parent is not going to do it, now it falls back on you. You have to be the one to start exposing the child to Gvura, because if you don't expose the child to Gvura, if you're just going to go along with the child to just keep him happy and keep him, healthy and hip and whatever it is, then you're not doing anything. What you're doing is you're giving the child enjoyment.
I hear you. Can I mention something a little like on topic, but a little like branching off?
Always.
I was exposed to this recently, talking about it, how kids who grew up with only chesed, like you say, they themselves are hungry for gvura. And they always say kids, even without them, subconsciously kids crave a structure. That's what I've heard a lot. But practically, like for example, practically that a lot of the, especially I'm talking about those in Chutz La'aretz, because they don't have to go to the Israeli army. Technically, they're not Israeli, but they want to and they crave. It doesn't make sense. You hear what they have to go through in the army. It's like, and those are the kids that grew up totally free with no gvura. They crave and want that gvura. So maybe you can say, I mean, already I'm responding to myself that, okay, it's maybe an exception, only a few, and we shouldn't rely on that, or not. What do you say?
I think that is something that is prevalent by a lot of people that don't grow up with gvura. Correct. Now the question is that healthy? Is it healthy to go out and look for other things of right? Jordan Peterson is a beautiful example, right? I remember when he started going big. Why is he growing so big? Is because the world education is not teaching our kids about responsibility. You have responsibility. You have to cleaning your room, right? That one of his 12 rules for life. Clean your room. But it's what's crazy is that it's such a simple thing, and nevertheless, people are not dying, but flying to places and spending money just to watch and to listen to Jordan Peterson. Why are they doing it?
Yeah, we're so lucky that we have it. We have it, and we're lucky that it's part of our education.
The problem is, right? Shay's Tab was having a whole. He gave a speech, and one of the shorts that was put out to Shay's was, "Why are people going to Jordan Peterson? Why are people going outside? We have our own mashpim, we have our own Shay's Tab, we have YY.
No, we
have all these people.
We don't. That's why.
Correct. And this is what I mentioned to someone while I was listening to it.
It's buried. We have it, but it's buried inside it, and people don't talk about it enough.
People are not talking about it. There's a famous saying. I don't know if it's funny, huh?
Hence our podcast.
There you go. No, there's a funny. I don't know if it's a joke or it ends up being real, that Jews are always like 10 or 15 years behind in the trends of the Goyim. We are now getting into this whole I'll say it, into this whole wokeness and being very
right, politically correct,
correct, and also being aware of ourselves and our feelings and how important our feelings are, and we have to validate ourselves, and all these little things that nowadays in the Goy Shavel they're literally moving on from it. They're fighting against it and all these things.
Can I mention something?
Yeah.
Can I mention something? As you just reminded me, that seems to say the opposite. I think it's a pretty famous thing. The Rebbe said something like, "You can't," because I think it started off like this. Someone told the Rebbe, like, paraphrasing that, how can you deal with the Americans? You can't tell them what to do, something like that. And the Rebbe said, you can't make them do anything, but you can teach them how to do anything, and automatically they'll do it. And in my interpretation, in other words, the Rebbe is saying, like, almost like, don't force them, like, educate them, and automatically they themselves will want to do the right thing. Like, is that? And I think it's a little different to what you're saying, because it sounds like it's because I think the foundation, like I said this in other videos, is like, we like kids crave structure. We need structure. It's in our psyche, and as definitely as Jews, we are like we are Amcha Kolim Tzadikim. We all want to do the right thing. We don't need someone to give it over the head on us. Like, we really deep down want to do the right thing, and there are many external reasons why we don't. And we just need to reveal that. And if we're just educated the right way, it will work. And I think a lot of things that there's a lot of ways this could branch out, but possibly I think in the system where we have enough rules of what to do, and we have to differentiate between, what's actually a chiyuv and what's made up, or a gezeira for the chiyuv. A lot of it's like they say tznius as an example, but that's for girls, so I don't want to get really so much into it. It's like there are many levels of it. It's like, what's actually halacha and what's made up or an exera for it, And it's very important to distinguish, because I think we're getting almost swallowed up. We're getting suffocated from too many rules. So my point is that we a little later on the Gvura, and that plays out practically, that we, instead of you have to do this, it's like more of, this is what you want to do. This is actually what you yourself want to do. It's not like do it even though you don't understand. And it's like, this is like, you want to be doing this. So this is who we are. It's a little bit different. And it's like, it comes more out of, it comes from, I feel like, a better place. And we can also, we're already getting so controversial, we can bring in Manis Freeman, where one of his biggest things he says is that automatically when we have this void, like we were just talking about, of no responsibility, then we crave responsibility. We're like, why are we born? Why we need all this? So people want, even lahavdil non-Jews, we want to have a purpose. We want to be doing something. We just need, they even say like the klipa nowadays is not bad anymore. I heard that from somewhere. I think it could be Manis Freeman. It's not an evil. It's just a lack of knowledge, and we see this. So like, I don't want to get into it, but like the what's going on in Israel and with Ulu, right, and all the anti-Semitism. The idea is about anti-Semitism. The anti-Semitism specifically, it used to be just pure evil, but now, I guess majority of people, at least, they're not actually evil. They just lack the knowledge, and if you'd explain to them, then they would, just like Tiferes Shenishba, which I made a video about. They don't want to do Averis. They just lack the knowledge or in education. What do you say about all this?
No, so education is the most important thing, and that's why it's very important to know what is it that you are doing in education. Are you just catering to a child at this moment right now, or are you giving them a foundation for their entire life? Right?
How long does it take to give you a child a foundation? Approximately. Obviously, every child is different, but like you said, for example, from 0 to 2, which I guess the logical reason is because before 2, they don't have everything is instinct, so that makes sense. So what is the age or some type of sign that we can tell that that's it? They have the foundation. They're good. How do we know? How long does it take?
I think it's 24. I think is when your prefrontal cortex is fully developed or something like that. But
right. That's true.
Again, that's a humanistic thing. I'm not 100% sure, but I mean, you have it in Torah. You have ages. The ben Chumash lemikra. You already start all these things. Again, education. Being that education is so important. That is, like the Rebbe said. Why is Education Day USA in Yud Nisan? Because the whole thing, the whole vart of the Rebbe was education. The foundation of everything that he stands for, the foundation of everything, the way to get rid of anti-Semitism, the answer for everything is education. As soon as you educate someone, everything changes. The whole way of thinking changes. And why is that? Because education touches something that is so much deeper than just your intellect. Right? In yeshiva, even in yeshiva, a lot of yeshiva is about already starting to formulate the way you think. Why? By learning Gemara, right? There's different. Famously, the yeshiva that you went to was the way you thought. The way you learned Torah was from the yeshiva you went to, because that is the way they taught. The way Brisker, the Brisker way of thinking. It's famous. The Panovich, famously, education is to form everything. Forms your way of thinking, forms the way you feel, forms the way you react to certain things, forms the way you regulate yourself. All these things comes from education. So again, if education is the foundation of everything, gives you the foundation of everything, right? So you're asking what makes you that? It's every year, and that's why every year is like a big deal. That's why every teacher has a big achais. And for me personally, I have a conversation with my father-in-law a lot about this. Is if that's the case, if education is such a big deal and so foundational, then why in the world are we letting our kids go from year to year with a different teacher, right? Because I see this in the school that I'm in. Every teacher every year is not completely different, but has a different way of of interacting with the
Exactly.
child. So
If I may add, it's like not only different style, but also it takes time to like someone, to get used to him. And as soon as like you finally you love the teacher, he's amazing. Oh, down to the next teacher.
Correct. So in my mind, I'm like, 1 second. Let's go back to basics. Why in the world are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing here? What are we doing as teachers? You're educating children. Okay, you're educating children. So tell me more about this education of children. We are forming them. We're giving them the skills to go into life and this and that and the other. So now my question is like this: I'm having a conversation with this teacher, and he says that this is the most important thing. I'm having a conversation with this teacher, and he says that this is the most important thing. Then I see a child that goes, correct, beautiful. No, good. There should be diversity, but when you're taking a child that is 7, 8, 9.
It's too much for him.
Putting it.
It's confusing. It's confusing.
Yeah, conflicting. Yeah, correct. Especially when we get into the weeds of Lubavitch and in Lubavitch itself, there people have different ways of understanding Lubavitch and understanding the way that what the Rebbe said. All these things, it gets crazy.
Right.
And so, what my remedy, my idea is that you take one grade, and you have for 3 years they're with the same teacher. Now, why 3 years? I think because 3 years is enough time of getting used to the teacher, then having actual time and spending time with the teacher once you're already used to, and then for the last year you can already spend with the child, getting them ready for wherever they're going to go next. So I think 3 years is nice, making a chazaka that this is you spent with the teacher, this you've gotten this from the teacher, you received this idea, you received this way of living and all these things. I personally think first, second, and third you should have three different classes, but each class is with the same teacher for 3 years. And then you go first and third, fourth, fifth, and sixth.
And it works out very well. Yeah. Yeah, that works out very well. In same Chumash, you have your same Chumash teacher for second, third, and fourth, and then Gemara, a different teacher for Gemara, second, third, and fourth. Yeah, I like that. That's a very good idea. Yeah.
So to get it to actually happen, to change systems, it's very hard. As I've tried. No, just kidding. But it's a conversation. One thing that I love about Chinuch is that it's a constant conversation. There's no teacher in the world that I've met personally that has his idea, has his thing figured out, and I'm not changing for anybody else. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you say. I disagree with you. My way is the highway. Or it doesn't make any sense. My way or whatever. My way is the way, right?
Yeah.
Because my way or the highway. It's either with me or not. Whatever. But,
okay, no, it sounded good. Yeah, it was good. Okay, correct. Yeah. I got what you said the first time. Yeah.
Correct.
My way is the best way, in other words.
Correct.
Yeah.
So but and that's what I think is beautiful, is that teachers are always trying to figure out. Teachers are themselves learning the entire time. That's the beauty of Chinuch, is that the problem, the issue that I find with that, even though it's beautiful, is that what are you giving children? We're always trying to reform ourselves, but the problem is, let's say when you're going to Yom Kippur, right? The beautiful example, right? The child is like a clay in the hand of a clay former. I don't know what they're called, but you are forming a child into whatever you're forming them, right? They're just a clump of clay, and now what you're doing, the Eibishter does, is forms them. The problem is, if every single moment you're changing the idea that you want to form them into, right? So let's say you want to form them into a cup, right? Anybody that has done pottery knows this. If you want to form into a cup, and then you change your mind, and you start forming into a bowl, then you change your mind, then you start forming into a vase, then you change your mind, then you go back to a cup or back to a bowl, and you're always changing your mind. What you're going to be left with is not garbage, but it's going to look messed up. The clay you're going to lose a lot of the clay, because in order to make the cup, you have to remove some of the clay, and then in order to make the bowl, you're going to have to add some more, and then you're going to make a vase, you're going to have to add some more and take away some. So even though it's beautiful that chinuch is not stagnant, it's not like we have our idea, this school is like this, and there's no, and we're not changing. On the other hand, yes, you're growing, but is it, you have to, before you start, you take that idea and you implement it, you have to make a real assessment on where you're holding with your children. Do you think that you are doing right now with them? And do you think that this is going to help them or it's going to confuse them? You have to be very, very ready to implement whatever you just learned, in the sense of you have to make a cheshbon and nefesh. If what you're doing is working, then be very wary of adding anything new, because that
Yeah.
new thing can change everything and can make it anything bad. So even though, again, chinuch, it's beautiful that there's new things and we're trying to change ways, but when you're experimenting, you have to understand what you're experimenting with. You're experimenting with children that they themselves don't have a certain way of thinking. They're relying on you to put them on the right track. And if you're experimenting on them, then it's detrimental. You have, again, and this is my taina to certain meisters. I'm not gonna thing whatever, vania katan, but or maybe I shouldn't say this. I don't know.
Say it.
All right, I'll say it. Is that you have to have proof that this is the right thing before you put it into your school and you implement it. You have to. You cannot. I don't think you should be the first one to try it out with your children, because, again, if we think that our children are fragile and we are forming them, we are forming their brains. You
What are you
can't do
talking
that.
about? You're being very vague. I'm not sure what you're referring to. You purposely being vague?
Yes,
It's okay
I'm
if
purposely
you
being
really.
vague, because I've
Okay, fine.
had these conversations with certain people, and if they're listening, they'll know what I'm talking about. But
Okay.
it's
The point
yeah,
is, don't experiment, which I understand. I was curious of, like, because I could tell
yeah,
you something specific. I want to
correct. The point is,
something on the topic, a little off topic. How do you understand the line "Chanech lanaar al pi darkoi"? How do you understand it?
oh, beautiful. So, okay, Chanech lanaar pil darkai is like this. Each person has their own way of learning. Darkai does not mean the way the his emotional capacity. Darkai does not mean his intellectual capacity. Darkai means the way, the derech that he has in learning. Now, the vart, we always do chanech lanal pi darkai, and we never get to gam ki yazkin lo yasir mimenu. Gam ki yazkin lo yasir mimenu is to give them the tools that gam ki yazkin, after they are out of your classroom, lo yasir mimenu, they're never going to go away from it. Chanech lanar al pi darkai, to educate a child according to the way he understands, the way he learns. Right? There are certain people that are visual learners. Certain people are more auditory. Certain people are more touchy. So that is pshat chanech lanar al pi darkai. But we shouldn't. Lo yasir mimenu is, we should make sure that anything that you give them, which is a whole conversation, should be lo yasim mimenu gam ki yazkin, even when he's out of your thing, even when he's doing his own thing, he's in his own derech. He should understand. He should remember what tools you gave him.
Are you
And
saying
that's
that wait, what is it, by the way? It's a posuk? Some
yeah.
It's a pasuk?
Tanya brings it
Okay.
down.
Somewhere
Tanya talks
nach.
about it.
Okay, whatever. I just because I was gonna say pasuk, I was like, wait, okay. So is pasuk trying to say that when the way he won't go off the derech, is chanech lanar pidarkai, which you're interpreting to mean if he's visual or if he's more audio or he's more touchy, you have to go that's what it's referring to, um, not referring to the emotional psychological aspect. Correct?
So I said intellectual aspect, but I think it also has to do with that. Like if a kid is a genius, you have to teach him according to his level. You have to give him more things in order to be
But my
intellectually
question is,
stimulating.
what does that have to do with him not going off the derech? like you can teach, because let's be more practical. You can teach a smart kid if let's say he's only smart visual. So you teach him visual, but what does that specifically have to do? How will that stop him from going off the derech?
I don't think it's the teaching him the information that is going to stop him from going off the derech. I think it's the giving him of the tools of life, right? In the sense of, is he healthy in body, mind, and spirit? Meaning, is he getting a healthy amount of gvura from a healthy place? Is he getting a healthy amount of thick skin? Is what comes to mind. I think the best way to not go after derech is if you have thick skin. Nothing can faze you. This is the way. This is the derech.
There's a reality called snapping. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, that's when
it happens usually to younger, in like teenagers, but it could happen even to adults married. So what do you say to that?
How do you say from that? So to be honest, I don't know much about. I haven't thought about much about snapping, but I mean, as a bacher, I've heard about it, and I know people. I like this. I could say what I thought then. I haven't thought much about, so it's not like a thought that has been formulated. Okay, yeah.
So again, going back to the posuk. So you're saying. I still think I don't fully understand how you're trying to say because we're understanding the pasuk that in order the pasuk is telling you how do you get a child not to go off the derech is through al pi darkai, which is what again? What are you saying? What's al pi darkai?
More has to do with
rabbi. Sorry.
No.
What?
I'm thinking. It has to do more with the way he learns and more with information than the way he feels and the way he connects with his feelings.
So, but what does that have to do with al pi darkai?
What do you mean? People have different way of learning.
Which is? Like you said, visual.
Different intellectual capabilities, and also the way people learn. I'll connect it. Yeah.
No, because again, I don't see if let's say a smarter kid, he goes in a higher class, but how will that a kid going to a higher class won't necessarily stop him, has almost, and I would say argue even almost nothing to do with him going off the derech. You have very smart kids who go off the derech. So that's what I'm trying to connect. Like,
I think smart kids going off the derech has nothing to do with their intellectual capacities. It has to do with their emotional capacities. That no one gave them any gvura. People gave them too much chesed, or opposite, people didn't give them any chesed and only gave them gvura. It has nothing to do with their intellect. If anything, because of them being a genius, they were never given the proper gvura or never given the proper chesed.
Okay, fine, but that was just in one example. But my point is, again, what is this? I really want to understand what is this darkai it's talking about in pasuk. Darkai sounds like it's personal. It's his way. And that will stop him from going off the derech.
So what? So again, so you're saying that his way has to be the way he was brought up.
No, I'm not saying my opinion. I'm asking you first.
So
unless you want me to start.
No, I want you to start only because I'm trying to answer the question, but you are obviously you're looking for something deeper. You're trying to understand. You understand in a deeper way, and you're trying to understand how I understand it in a more. Yeah.
No, I'm not understanding what you're saying. I'm just trying to understand the pasuk.
So let me hear how you understand that, okay? And I'll either agree or disagree, and I'll
I'll start.
I'll go off that.
So first of all, this is based on the premise that again, And I'll say it, that the way we're trying to, the pasuk is trying to tell you how to stop your child from going off the derech. What is the way? Now, it's not in a forceful way, or maybe it is actually, but the point is, what is a method to stop your child from going off the derech? You know how it is? I'm saying it backwards, because usually Hebrew and English is backwards. So the way you stop your child from going off the derech is al pi darkei. Now, it's open for interpretation. It's very vague. What is al pi darkei? But even though it's pretty vague, it doesn't say the specific method, but I'm focusing on the vav, that vav and the dot on top of it, his way. What does his way mean? His way sounds very personal. Now, it doesn't say what that personal means, but in my humble opinion, I think that being personal means that, like, for example, if he's in other words, you have to consider the makabel. I made a video about being makabel. Okay, someone didn't like the word responsibility. It's a very harsh word, but whoever the educator is has, because you're making it sound like, don't consider the makabel. You have to the makabels should consider the outside, consider Hashem. It shouldn't be self-focused. You should be focused on Hashem. I'm saying sounds like the opposite, where it's the educator, Mashpia's responsibility. I'm just going to use the word responsibility because it's easier. Yeah, because it's easier. It's his responsibility to, because it's very much lacking, and in my own experience, my experience around me, that you see how these teachers have no connection to the student. They just talking, and if you understand it, good. If you don't, I don't care. Like, okay, that's an extreme. But yeah, there a lot of teachers don't cater. I think they don't tune their sheer to in a way that the student, specifically his way, can chew it. Which is, by the way, I mean, it's a problem. That's a problem we do it in a class, and that's why I'm a big fan of tutoring, which I tutor, because it has to be personalized, and it's not a one size fits all. There's a very few things that one size fits all. So again, the point is,
I agree.
Yeah. So my point is, it has to be personal, which means practically that whoever the educator is, a parent, teacher, whatever, has to tune whatever he's giving over to fit the personality type of the makabel. Was that clear?
Sure.
That's how I understand it.
I agree 100%.
Okay, it didn't sound like you did, but okay.
So now translating that and putting and sticking what I said into what you said is that the responsibility that the teacher has towards the child, correct, the mashpia has towards the makabel, is that if the child is in this level of learning, it's a shad to give him either something that is way above his head or way below him, right? And this is another issue that I have with the current day system, is that we have lost focus, or we have shifted focus, right? We've gone to a full extreme of dealing with the lowest in the class, right? The slowest in the class.
Yeah.
And what we've done is we've done that at the expense of everybody else in the class, which means
yes,
there's
we
much.
pretty much spoke about it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much for the slow one, but there's nothing. There's no longer anything for the smartest in the class, and even your average in the class is slowing down, because if no longer I have to keep up, so what's stopping me from staying? So our mediocre bar, our middle class has been lowered so much, because if we're dealing with the lowest bar, so the highest bar is just lost. They're just doing their own thing. They're just spacing out. The middle bar, they're involved, but because we're teaching here, so they're going down. That's what's happening, and we see it. There's kids that are knowing so much less, because I see it in yeshiva. Yeshiva has had to I'll use the word dumb down, but has had to lower the level of learning, of teaching, because we've, as the earlier years of Chinuch, that's what we've been doing, and you no longer have so many of Iluyim, and it's a shad pashut, because we're losing so much, but we've gone to the full extreme, on the other extreme of Chanech al pi darkai. Well, it has to be according to his way. He has to understand it. And so what's going to happen? What's going to happen is I'm only going to move on to the next pasuk until Yankel Shmar Beller on the back of the room understands what I said. Even if I have to repeat it 101 times, like the Tanya says, it's worth it. That you're not wrong, but what about everybody else's darkai? What about the darkai of either half the class, majority of the class, or even if it's like 5 kids? What about their darkai? So you are right, totally correct. Al pi darkai means that you have to make sure that everybody understands what you're saying, but also not only understands what you're saying, but is learning according to their level. Again, I think that there are understandings of darkai, meaning emotional level, and based on their darkai, the way they were brought up. That's how you have to teach them. But I think really it comes down to, where are they in intellect, in the level of learning? Are they in the high level of learning? And you have to cater to that. If they're in the middle of level of learning, you have to cater to that. If they're low, even if they're in the lower level, you have to cater to everybody, correct? But what we've done is we've gone all the way to the other extreme, just focused on the lowest level and taken down everybody else along with us. And that's a big issue. I don't know how long it is going to take until we get back to in the middle, but Mirza Shem should be very, very soon.
Amen. In this concept, we spoke about it. Was it? I think with my brother, that it was more focused on the middle as being forgotten. Like those who are smart will almost be able to learn on their own. They're like, type of thing. And now, we've catered in the past several years, however many years, for the lowest. And the middle people are being forgotten. And by the way, and we said it there also, that it's not just with learning, it's with everything in life. Like in general in life, in the Jewish world, in the Havdu non-Jewish world, everywhere you see, we know the fringe minority, the whatever you call them, the lowest so-called, in any shape or form, we have pity on them, and like, whatever. I don't want to go in details of the craziness, but I think you understand what I'm saying. It's not just my point is not just learning; it's like everywhere. And we need to get back to the middle. We need to cater for everyone specifically. Yeah, and which is I think almost impossible in a class setting. I don't know how it's possible. It's like,
I'll tell you.
Even when you have like, let's say 3 levels. What? How is it possible?
Yeah. So there's Rabbi Jacobson has active participation, which I think is beautiful. That it's catered for everybody, in the sense of everybody is on the same page, which means at every single moment you're not spending extra time for the slowest, and you're not spending less time for the fastest. You're spending a middle amount of time for everybody. Everybody should be able to get it. The problem is the issue that you arise there is, if you have someone that is a genius and you have someone that is chas v'shalom an idiot, then it gets very hard to do that, to bridge that gap. For me personally, what I've done is I've in my class have set up 3 tracks. Now, being that this is my first year of actually teaching, it's still formulating, but I give space for the fast kids to go at their own pace, to go ahead, without losing the slowest kid. Meaning that there's the class speed, and it's slow enough and fast enough that no one's that I'm again, this is me trying that the middle is not dumbed down, and I'm raising the lower kids to the middle level, and the fast kids, the kids that are on a higher level, I am trying, and I'm giving them the speed of the class. They're going faster than the class, but within enough of a window that we're all seemingly in the same area.
Wow. Yeah, I know another teacher who
on
did
it.
was. Yeah, I was actually thinking of saying that who did that, and I think again I mentioned it in another podcast. Yeah, that is. It's much harder for the teacher to do that. Like I'm sure there has to be something better or easier. I don't know. So every teacher is expected to have like 3 tracks and making, and I don't think I mean, I guess if a teacher can't do it, they shouldn't be a teacher. I don't know. That's a whole nother story.
No,
But the lack of
what
teachers.
used
But
to
yeah,
happen? What used to happen is there used to be different tracks. There used to be the higher class, the lower class, and what they decided is we're gonna get rid of that because it's not nice for the lower kids, right? That makes them feel like idiots, and there's not the other. Now I hear that 100%, but at the end of the day, what are you gonna do? You can call them.
it's actually
You can.
interesting.
You
And
don't have to call
I'm
them.
not. It's interesting you say that. I mean, at least in the schools I went to, I didn't really. I mean, and in the later grades in yeshiva also there was higher and lower. So I'm not sure. I mean, I didn't know there was some grades where they didn't have different levels just because not to put the lower class down.
Nowadays,
Well, maybe
it's
it's
not split up. Nowadays, it's not split up
by
by
level,
um,
like
by
so.
levels. Definitely.
Wow.
Except I'm saying yeshiva is still pretty much there, but but
They're
yeah,
not so.
I don't,
Wow.
not as much.
Wow. Uh-huh. So I guess that we finished that subject, even though I'm sure there's more to say, but the flow seemed to stop there. Did you end up speaking about the depression you wanted to say?
Oh, depression, beautiful. It's
It's
Alberich,
not
this whole
beautiful.
thing.
It's not
No,
beautiful.
correct.
Yeah.
Not beautiful at all. But it's in a similar note, being that I think the Rebbe speaks a lot about this with regards to depression, is that right there's a lot of conversations about how to deal with it and to go to therapy and to talk about it and to talk through it and all these things. But at the end of the day, I think if you're doing the right things, if you're a person that is waking up and that is waking up now, it's hard to wake up in the morning, don't get me wrong, it's a struggle for people that are depressed. The struggle is harder, but are you pushing the way to get yourself out of depression is not by going to therapy. I mean, therapy like this. Therapy should be for someone who's on like a very, very advanced level of depression and sadness and suicidal chas v'shalom. That's that's where you go to therapy, is when you have something really, really bad going on in your life, something really, really traumatizing, chas v'shalom, a person's parents died in a car crash, and he was in the car crash, and he survived. He was the only one that survived. He's lost his arm, he lost his leg, and he got home, and when after he recovered, he went home, and his entire house was robbed. Basically, a bunch of very, very bad things in life. Then maybe you might want to go to therapy. But that's like whatever. But your average person that is depressed, the first question that you should ask, either yourself or if you're speaking to someone that is depressed, is what are you doing? Are you a person that is doing nothing with your life? Then I hear why you might be depressed and why you're going to continue being depressed. As soon as you start doing things, it gets you out of depression. I'll give you an example, a personal example. I thought I was depressed for a good amount of months, and looking back now, after I heard this after I read this letter from the Rebbe, that the Rebbe talks about depression is, are they doing things? The Rebbe asks them if they're doing this, if they're doing that, and they should be doing this, they should be doing that. Are they doing doing mitzvahim? Are they? The Rebbe gives a bunch of examples of things to do in order to get themselves out of depression. So looking back, I saw I was literally doing nothing the whole day. I was just sitting in bed doing nothing the entire day. I would wake up at 10 o'clock, put on tefillin late, sometimes after 12. Anyways, that's it. It was boiled down to bed, eating in my room. I barely left my room, and I had my tefillin in my room. That was it. And I was depressed. And now I know why I was depressed. I was doing nothing. I was doing nothing with my life. how did I get out of depression? I don't remember exactly what it was, but I just started doing it. I just started getting into the rhythm of life. You know, I woke up in the morning. I went to Seder Chassidus. I went to Shachis. Like I started going to all these things. I started leaving my room and I started doing things. I went to breakfast. I ate breakfast with my friends, and just the simple act of doing things is what pulled me out of depression. Now, why am I saying it's a similar note? Is because the reason why a person is in depression is because they're focused on themselves. When you're focused on yourself, when your baseline is yourself, when the foundation is yourself, so it's very easy to get depressed and stop doing things and stay in depression and making a whole cycle. But as soon as you realize that it's not about yourself, rather it's about the external, it's about doing things, it's about the Eibishter, it's about everybody else, it's about Maisa or Iker, it's about all these things. Then it removes. As soon as you remove yourself from yourself, then the depression goes away, because the depression is all about yourself. Sam, interesting Nakoda that I wanted to that was on a similar note to what we said about an hour ago already, but is that the solution to a lot of our mental issues or our emotional issues is, as soon as we remove ourselves from ourselves, as soon as we start focusing on other people, you start focusing on doing a small thing, doing a favor for someone else, opening the door, and the person turning around and smiling, it changes your life. Why does it change your life? Because human beings, we, as especially Yidden, are naturally selfless. We are supposed to be doing things for everybody else.
So, according to what you're saying, you don't. It sounds like what you're saying that. I'll make it. I could say it either way. So, are you saying that it's not possible? There's no such thing as being depressed outside of that. Like, it's not possible to be depressed and be doing things for other people, like doing chesed or doing shlichus or stuff like that.
Not that it's not possible, but and I say this.
Why is it? So what is that? Why is that? Why is there still depression even though you could still be doing chesed?
Because you're not because the chesed that you were doing was for yourself. It wasn't for someone else. You were still being
Let's say
selfish.
so you're saying that if you're really doing chesed for other people, it's not possible to be depressed?
Point to me to someone that is doing everything right and is still depressed. Point to me to a depressed person, and point to me to a depressed person that is doing everything right and is still depressed.
Wow. I mean, no one's gonna. I mean, some people are pretty honest these days, but I personally believe, I can't say for certain, I definitely won't say it on the podcast, and it's not a point to say names, but I definitely believe that it does exist, and that's what I'm getting to. But like, I'm trying to be objective because I'm hearing your side, because I personally believe that it could still exist. I still I agree with you. That is a factor, and I'll just say what I believe is that basically it's not black and white depression, and I believe it's multiple factors. And I believe this is basically, we are 5 parts to us, or 4 practical parts to us. And we need all 4 of them to be a healthy human being. And this is, I think, the solution to everything. And depression, now we're talking about depression. So that's why I'm like asking you these type of questions, because I'm trying to get to is that I agree with you. But that's only one part. And that's why I do believe you can still be depressed, even if you're doing chesed for other people.
Like what? What's another part?
What?
What are the other parts?
So with first saying what they are, and then we can try to, I mean, maybe we don't have to give examples, but there's the physical aspect, there's the emotional aspect, the mental, and the spiritual. And then we have Yechidah, but that's the core. So this is the secret to everything, I believe. And now in depression, it plays itself out that you only gave a solution to not be depressed on a spiritual level. But I believe, and you see this for a fact, and I can't think on the top of my head, but I know people that are doing very well in their life who are depressed. well in their life, meaning they're doing chesed and they're thinking about other people, and I really think they are thinking about other people when they do shlichus, and yet they're still depressed because they're either lacking in also either physical, emotional, mental. Like I'll give you a probably very common example. This could be with shluchim, that they're very isolated. Like who's not going to be depressed, isolated? A lot of shluchim, especially on Shabbos when he can't go out. I've been like I you know what I don't know I have this won't give it away of who it is, but I stuck in my memory of the shliach who was pretty isolated, and especially on Shabbos where you can't really go out. He didn't even have a minion or something, but we came to him for Shabbaton. He was like, from external perspective, he looked depressed. Like he was just, even though he was learning, I think he was learning something in a book, but he gave off this aura that he was depressed. And I think because he's isolated, he's not being with people, even though we were there. That's just stuck in my memory, and I can't, I didn't ask him, are you depressed? And he didn't give me an honest answer, but that's just what I felt. And I feel that's just one example, which obviously I wouldn't say the name, but it's like, I feel like there's so many all over the place where people are really doing chesed, and there's other reasons why they can be, and I'll sound funny, but I think it's a real thing. I mean, whatever, not going into, should we be natural or medicine? That's a very controversial topic, whatever. But my point is that there are natural things that if you don't have them cause depression. And if you do have them, it takes away depression. Like they say, for example, like eating blueberries takes away depression. Because as I said, because that it needs to be at all levels. And on a physical level, you need certain nutrients to not be depressed. And that applies emotionally also. Like you need to have friends to not be depressed. If you're just doing chesed, but you're lacking, I believe if you're lacking physical, emotional, mental, then you're very likely going to be depressed. And it's like, or else you're not human. Because as a human being, we have all these 4 or 5 aspects. What do you think about that?
I definitely hear that. But again, I think at the end of the day, all of these things, correct. You have to be healthy. You have to be physically healthy. But if you're doing the correct thing, which means you're physically healthy, right? You obviously that's part of Judaism is to be healthy. If you are physically healthy, if you are, again, you are waking up in the morning. If you're doing everything that the Shulchan Aruch says, or for the most part, you are trying to do everything that the Shulchan Aruch says. You are doing shoes all 9 yards. It's very, very hard to be sad, to be depressed, to be down.
You know what? I'm not going to say this person, but I'll be more specific. Maybe now you will see what I'm saying from my perspective. I think specifically focus on yeshiva, and actually not shlichus, on yeshiva. I think a lot of bachim are depressed, and they're doing all the right things from all the 9 yards. And specifically, the ones that are doing all the right things are the ones that are depressed. You don't agree?
Okay, I could tell you my experience in yeshiva. I know the people that were known to be depressed were people that were not doing all the things. And those people that were
not talking about that. I'm talking about, I know people who I think are doing the right things and are depressed.
Okay, it could be that they're yeah. I hear, but are they really doing all that?
That's my point. I think they're doing too much, and they have to be honest with themselves and be, where am I holding? And it's a tragedy in yeshiva. I think that they're very good at pushing them. I haven't, have you ever heard of Mashpia saying take it easy? No, they would never say that, and it's a tragedy, because I think a lot of cause for depression is because Bacham are working too hard, and like I said earlier, they snap because you can only handle so much.
Yeah, but how many people snapped?
Not
a lot of people that snapped.
Not that many, but I'm saying it's not
more people. 1 second. More people fry out by not doing everything than snap by doing everything. I think at the end of the day, and as much as you do is the right thing, as much of the right thing that you do is the right thing, and the foundation has to be outside of ourselves, and the Rebbe was so much about that. Was so much about spreading outside, chutzah, mayonos chutzah, the shluchim everywhere. was so much about doing that, so much about doing. Are you doing, right? Check it and mezuzahs when you have an issue. Are you doing chitas and rambam? All these things, the Rebbe was so much about doing, so much about. It's very interesting because a lot of people, older people, have issues with like Chassidus is. If you learn Chassidus, it's like about sitting and learning and mizboinen and davening for hours. The Rebbe was so not about that. The Rebbe was so not about sit for hours and daven. The Rebbe was so not about sit your entire life and learn. The Rebbe was so much about go on mivtzayim. Obviously, Bachrim, there's a fine line between you have to go to yeshiva, but also still, nevertheless, the Rebbe was so much about doing, so much about going out and being spreading mayanos chutza and all these things. Like we're der shvi, we gotta do it. We gotta do it. I don't know.
Yeah, that's why I thought about it a lot, and I try to bridge the gap because we're not robots at the end of the day. What you said is right. Yeah, we have to understand. You have to understand these things and try to put everything together.
The Rebbe says it about Shlichus. The Rebbe says it about Shlichus that in the famous Chayisara Tavshin and Beis, the last sikha that the Rebbe spoke to the Shluchim, the Rebbe said that Moshiach is Shliach plus 10. What's the 10? The 10 is the Ezra Shochet nefesh. That when a Shliach gives in his entire being, and it's not like robotic. It's not like, oh, the Rebbe told me to make a mitzvah here, so I'm going to make this event. The Rebbe told me to put on tefillin on this amount of people, so that's what I'm going to do. No, the Rebbe sent out people to do to you go to your place, and this is what you should do. You should do it with your Ezra Shochet nefesh. Your entire being should be invested in the shlichus that I gave you. Don't be a robot. I don't need a robot. I don't need someone to just do what I tell them to do. I need you to do it because you want to, because this is what you want to do, and that's what Chav ניסן was about. Tut als was kennt. Tut als was kennt. Do everything that you can do. The Rebbe said, "What's lehev v'larik?" What was I doing? The Rebbe said, "I spent so much time trying to make you want it. You don't want it. You just want it because I want it. You're a robot." The Rebbe said it in Yudalef ניסן. The Rebbe said the first farbrengen that the Rebbe gave to the Chassidim is you guys better be really ready to work because I'm not doing it for you. I'm going to give you tools to not do it yourself. You got to do it. And that was the Rebbe's whole nesias. The Rebbe's whole thing was that we should do it. That we should do it because we want to do it. And being that the goal of the Rebbe was Geula, was Moshiach. So that's why the Rebbe changed everything. That's why the Rebbe was different from all the other Nesiei Chabad. The avoid of the Rebbe's generation is not to sit and be mizbein and davening. The avoid of the Rebbe's generation is to go out, be spreading Mayanos Chutza, finally doing the last things, right? Going around and bringing one more yid and doing one more mitzvah. And then when we got to the point, and this is the craziest part, and this is why I think, personally, my own opinion, I think a lot of people didn't swallow the pill, is because it's a very hard pill to swallow. When the Rebbe said that we finished the Avodah, we finished spreading the Mayanos Chutza, we finished the Avodas HaBerurim, we finished the Avodas of Golos. And now, here the Rebbe says something crazy, is now we all have to do is Kabbalas Pnei Mashiach Tzidkenu. So all of a sudden, the Rebbe spent 40 years the Rebbe spent telling us that we have to go out into the world, we have to do mitzvahs, we have to get people, we have to be in Karav Yidin, we have to get people to put on tefillin, we have to get ladies to light Shabbos candles, we have to get all the mitzvahs, all the mezuzahs, Bais Malis Farim. Every single thing was about being mevared in the is getting all the last sparks before Mashiach comes, doing the avodah of Golos. And what's crazy is that when we got
it sounds like you said two opposite things. You start off saying, and it sounds like that's the whole point of what you're saying, is that you have to just do it. But it seemed like Chav ניסן was exactly the opposite, where it's not about just doing it. Because like the Rebbe said, it's ad mostai. So we said ad mostai. It's like, no, you missed the point. It has to come from you. So here's my point. It almost sounds like the opposite, where I'll say it like in different words. Like in my interpretation. And in order to really, for you yourself to really want it, isn't the only way to do that is through working on yourself? Like AKA psychological healing, you know what I mean?
So beautiful. The Rebbe says, in talking to the Shluchim, that the new Shlichus, there's only one thing that I want you to do right now. The last Shlichus is Kabbalas Pnei Mashiach Tzidkenu. And the Rebbe gives a whole thing that now we're standing in the Kinos HaShluchim, where we are going to make Achatas Teves. We're going to figure out ways to get ourselves ready and our surroundings, our cities ready to greet Mashiach. And the Rebbe said that we have to make Achatas Teves. How we are going to do it? By teaching and spreading b'oifen hamiskabel. The Rebbe uses the words in an accepted manner. B'oifen hamiskabel, in Chachma bin Adas, that everybody should understand. Yonagol Mashiach, all these things, right? Famous paragraph that a lot of people, once they learn the Sikha, they're like, oh, but the Rebbe says b'oifen hamiskabel, right? The Rebbe says that it should be in an accepted manner. So now a person might think, what does that mean? That means if I go to a city and I start talking about how the Rebbe is Mashiach and all that stuff, and people start throwing balls at me, I should turn around and walk away. These people are not open to be Makabel, so I'm gonna keep my mouth quiet, right? And this is what Lubavitch Lubavitch incorporated, right? The Merkez and all the things. They made a statement that it's not we're not spreading the word that the Rebbe is Mashiach. That's not a thing that we're doing, right? That's a big machlekes between the two sides. Everybody agrees that Rebbe is Mashiach, but the question is, should you be talking about it? So the people that say we should be talking about it, what do you mean? The Rebbe says that this is the in and that the last thing that we need to do is to be Makabel Pnei Mashiach Tzidkenu. Now, how does the guy in Mexico know about know to greet Mashiach? Is by telling him that there's a Rebbe, there's a person, there's a Melech HaMashiach, he exists, he's in the room. Turn around, look at this. This is Mashiach. Greet him. That's the Shechist. The antis, the people on the other side, are saying no. The Rebbe says b'oifen hamiskabel. The Rebbe said this. Yeah, you're right. The Rebbe said that he's Mashiach, all that stuff. I mean, he didn't say that he's Mashiach, but he said as Farana Melech HaMashiach echad b'chol dever der yesh echad mizarei Yehuda, the whole thing. But he put in a little thing that b'oifen hamiskabel. Now, what does that mean? What does b'oifen hamiskabel mean? So they say that it means that if they're going to accept it, then you do it. That it has to be in a way that they're going to accept it. If they don't accept it, then you move on, turn around, move on to your next thing. And Lubavitch doesn't think that people are going to accept it because it's too crazy, it's too wild, it's too out there, it's too messianic, And this is the issue. So you're right. We have to want it, but the avodah of ourselves cannot be at the expense of spreading it. Which means, being that the Shlichus, the Ikar avodah, is to spread the fact, to be Makabel Pnei Mashiach Tzidkenu. Being that that's the Ikar thing, so that is the foundation. The foundation is, at the end of the day, that's what you have to do. Your Shlichus, if you're a Shliach in your area, you have to get your community ready to accept the Rebbe as king. If you have an issue, right? The Rebbe says, you have to want it. It cannot come at the expense of you telling your community. Right? I was listening to your interview with Rabbi Goldstein, Yisrael Goldstein. I love him. But he was saying how if it comes he was saying about Avos Yisrael, right? That, oh, look, the Rebbe said that, so I'm going to stuff it down your throat. Now, I agree. You shouldn't stuff anything down anybody's throat, because if you have to stuff it down their throat, it means that you yourself are not completely ready. But it cannot come at the expense of getting everybody ready. And this is I'm not going to put anybody down, but Shluchim are doing beautiful things. But if this is the Shlichus, if this is what you have to do, if this is the last thing that we have to do, like this, people are saying, well, what do we have to do to bring Mashiach? We know what we have to do. The Rebbe told us what we have to do. What happened was we were so focused on ourselves, our own insecurities, that we've just completely not forgot about it, but abandoned the last message that the Rebbe gave us. And I think that's the core of the issue with focusing on yourself. Is when you focus on yourself, you miss the point. You miss the goal. If the goal is that everybody, right? Like this, we all agree that when Mashiach comes, everything is going to be amazing for everybody, right? Which means we personally want Mashiach. Now, we have our own insecurities, we have our own questions about that, but if we know that there's one more thing that we have to do to bring Mashiach, so it would make sense that yes, you yourself have to get ready. The Rebbe said you have to get yourself ready, but you also have to get your surroundings ready. It's not only about yourself. It's very much about getting the world.
How do you practically get people ready for Mashiach?
Practically, you explain to them about what Mashiach, what the Geula is, and who Mashiach is. Talk about Mashiach.
Is it necessary to, how do we say this? To resonate it with what you're saying, or could you just be robotic and tell them all the sources v'chulu v'dal?
I mean, so first of all, you should know this. You should learn all the sources, right? That's a personal thing that everybody should like this. Instead of saying, "Oh, people are not going to be makabel," instead of saying that this is we're just going to abandon ship. No. Right now, go to the year and a half of the Rebbe's, basically a year that the Rebbe spoke. The Shlichus, all the Shlichus after Chav Ches ניסן. Start from Chav Ches ניסן. Start from that amazing Sikha. Start from that Sikha and go on every single week. Learn that week's Sikha. Every single week, it's a progression. It's some people call it the Hemshich Nanafna base. It's because that's what it is. It's a progression. The Rebbe is showing us, the Rebbe is telling us what's happening. Once you know what's happening, so you can tell someone, first of all, what's crazy is that if you're in Shlichus and you meet someone that doesn't know anything about Judaism, so you telling them about kashrus, you telling them about Shabbos, they'll accept it the same if you tell them about Mashiach. What do they know? They don't know anything. So tell them, again, if you're talking about people that know Yiddishkeit, people that know about Judaism, people that know about Chassidus, and you're afraid that if you tell them about Mashiach, they'll be turned off. Fine. So for that, you have to be a little more, what's it called? Not tactic, but you have to have some tact, right? You can't just say, "Oh, Yechia, the Rebbe is Mashiach, and you have to accept him." No. Start a shir. Sit everybody down and say, "Let's talk about Mashiach. Let's talk about Geula. Let's talk about redemption. We're so close. Well, not only that, but we're in Yemesa Mashiach already. Let's talk about it. Let's learn about it." That's
how did this connect to what your point? It wasn't your point in the beginning. How you got into this was resonate with Chav Ches ניסן with making it your own. How does that how does that connect?
So I'll tell you like this. So the Rebbe says in Chav Ches ניסן that everything that I've done is level right? What does that mean? That means everything that I tried giving you, all the tools that I tried giving you, you're not receiving, you're not making it your own. Correct? Even though the whole point was to do, because it, at the end of the day, it wasn't working. Why wasn't it working? Because people didn't want it. People weren't really ready to accept, weren't ready to move on to the next stage. As soon as Chav Ches ניסן happened, by the way, whatever was holding back on Chav Ches ניסן, we've accomplished in the subsequent weeks. So we're the nekuda, the lesson that we could take from Chav Ches ניסן is more of a like we take a lesson from any other sikha, right, from previous sikhas. The lesson is that there's a few lessons that I take. Number one is tut altus kent, which means you can do it. Now, what are you going to do, right? I'm not going. The Rebbe says like this. The Rebbe says, everything that I've tried to give you didn't work, which means now you have to figure it out yourself. You have to sit and figure out how you are going to personally do the last thing to bring Moshiach. Right? Again, this is in Chav Ches Nissen. This is before Tafshin and Beis, which I'll get to in a second. But sticking to that sikha and that week, what the Rebbe was telling us is that now you have to figure out what to do. The entire world could be doing one thing. And the Rebbe says this. The Rebbe says that everybody can be doing it. And they could all be wrong. They could all be doing not the wrong thing, but not the thing that will bring Mashiach. So the Rebbe says that there could be 1, 2, or 3 people that can find what to do and how to do it, and 10 people that will really, really want it. Which means what? Which means, again, just because everybody's doing something doesn't mean that that's necessarily is what's going to bring Mashiach. The Rebbe says that it's up to 1 or 2 or 3 people to figure it out. So what's tut altzvas erkent? What is it? Everything that you can do. Close your eye. Don't listen to what anybody else says. If someone tells you that the way to bring Mashiach is like this is what you should do. No. Stop. What does the Rebbe say? The Rebbe, and then all the sikhs after Chav Ches Nissen was in order to help us figure it out, right? And not only that, but in Noach, the Rebbe says that we've earned the Geula. Everything that was holding back in Chav Ches Nissen was accomplished already. We have the Geula. Now we need Mashiach. And then 2 weeks later, the Rebbe says we've done that too. Now we have Mashiach. We have this Galus of Mashiach. Anyways, that's not the point. The point is that when the Rebbe says tut altzvas erkent, it means that everything that everybody else is telling you to do, not necessarily is that what you have to do. You have to sit and figure out how to bring Mashiach. Everybody has a responsibility to do that on their own as an individual. And this is what it means, that you have that the Rebbe shifted a focus of now it's not necessarily doesn't mean to make it your own, as you have to sit, close the world off. You have to sit in your room and try to figure out and try to make yourself really, really want Mashiach. That's not necessarily what it means. Again, I could see how someone will understand that, but what it does mean, or what I understand what it means, another explanation is that you figure out a way to bring Mashiach. You, not, again, Rabbi Yoel didn't figure it out. Rabbi Moshe Kotlarski didn't figure it out. Rabbi Krinsky didn't figure it out. Rabbi Kunin, I don't know if he didn't figure it out yet, but point is, right now we're coming to 32 years after Gimel Tammuz and Tafshin and Dalet. 32 years, and still we've had tons of amazing shluchim, tons of amazing mashpim, rabbanim, people that are geniuses in chassidus. They know chassidus backwards and forwards. They were by the fabringans, all these things. They still didn't figure it out. We're 35 years later. We're 32 years later. We're still here. Meaning that don't give up hope. Don't say if they couldn't do it, I'm going to do it. No, adrabah. Figure out how you can do it, and don't for a second say, because I am not ready, because I am not mekabel, I don't see how, I'm not comfortable with Mashiach, I shouldn't go out and talk about it, I shouldn't figure out ways. No. The foundation is that we have to get the world ready and ourselves ready, but we are a secondary towards the goal. The goal is to get the world ready. The goal is to have a Mashiach klali, a general Mashiach for everyone. And you should not hold, because like this, if it's possible that you are going to be the one that figure it out, Don't say, oh, because I'm not ready, I'm not going to figure it out. Don't put yourself in the way of everybody else's geula. And that's again, my understanding of the Sikha, one of them is that if you are the one that can figure it out, don't put yourself in the way of everybody figuring it out, of everybody getting it, of everybody receiving it. Even if you are not comfortable with it, even if you are not ready for it, put yourself out there. Give a shear, right? If you don't know the Sikhs and you're not comfortable to learn the Sikhs yet, start a shear, right? Like the Rosh did. Put things out there. Put Moshiach messages out there. Get Moshiach into the world and get everybody else ready. If you have a friend, if you have an acquaintance that's going to listen to you, like a shliach, a shliach has a bunch of people that are in his community there to listen to him. Everything that he says is Judaism. That is their Judaism, is whatever the shliach says. So the same shliach that is telling them about kashrut, is telling them about Shabbos, tell them about Moshiach. Right? Me as a teacher, as a mechanech, I'm a shliach in my classroom. I have 16 boys that are listening to everything that I say. I teach for them, whatever I say is Torah. Right? I teach them about anything, Bereshis. The Eibusher created the world. If I tell them that the Eibusher created the world and he felt that this and that and the other, that's what they're getting. Everything that they're getting is from me. So on the same note, give them that Mashiach. Give them what they need. And that's the most important thing. The most important is at the end of the day, the Iker is Maaseh. The Iker is everybody else. You are a vehicle towards that thing, which means that when it comes down to is it you or them, it always has to be them. Not saying you or them if someone has to pick between you and them. It's if you have to pick between yourself and someone else, you have to pick that someone else, because that is why you were put into the world. You were put into the world for 70, 80 years just to do a favor for another. That is why you're here. And I will finish off with that.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Reb Levi. It was, wow, this was out of this world. And I wouldn't be surprised if we sometime make a part 2. We didn't talk about Levi is started a podcast with Reb Simcha Fish, which hopefully I will get him also interviewed about Greeting Mashiach, it's called.
Yeah, Greeting Mashiach.
Yeah, and check it out. I also want to say that kol hakavod for being a teacher. I mentioned in one of my podcasts, it's insane responsibility, and it's really, really hard. I don't know how you do it. Kol hakavod. And subscribe, and what else? Anything last words?
Mashiach now.
Mashiach now, and also, as I said with Yisrael Goldstein. So what's the tetzah, the outcome from this?
The outcome from this is that I'm thinking of starting a shiur.
Wait, in addition to your podcast?
Yeah, outside.
Okay, very nice. Baruch Hashem. And as I said last time, I'm gonna, make another interview and turn this into shorts. And I'm constantly, this keeps me going. All right, thank you, Reb Levi. Mashiach now. M'chaim.